Gather you've just arrived in eastern Ukraine. Where are you?
I'm in a town called Trostyanets, which is in a province called Sumy, and it's about 20 miles from the border. I'm here because I was going to see the owners of a hotel which was trashed by the Russians who occupied this town at the beginning of the war last year. And I told them that I'd come back to see how they were rebuilding the place. And so I happen to be here, but and it's 20 miles away from the Russian border. But tomorrow I think that I will head off for Kharkiv, which will be an interesting place to monitor these developments from.
Askold, what is the feeling on the ground at the moment in Ukraine? President Zelensky has been saying that this shows how weak Russia is, the fact that they are now fighting amongst themselves. But I can imagine there must be an element of, opportunity for Ukraine at the moment, particularly seeing as they are in the midst of their counter-offensive.
There are a number of things happening. As you say, the Ukrainian president has said that the mask has slipped, that the Kremlin and Putin can no longer hide the disasters that have been happening since they embarked on the invasion of Ukraine. But also, the Ukrainian military, which has been mounting an ever-growing attack. It's not still the main thrust of the counter-offensive, but they're building up to it. And they have for weeks. One of the places they've concentrated on is Bakhmut, the place that became notorious because it's the longest, bloodiest battle in this war, which has taken tens of thousands of Ukrainian lives and probably over 100,000 Russian lives. The military, the Ukrainian government already knew about the tensions between Prigozhin's Wagner mercenary group and the regular Russian army. And the Wagner group had taken most of Bakhmut, and they were withdrawing, and then got into a battle with the Russians, with the Russian regular forces. And so the Ukrainian military have been exploiting that, and the Russian forces there around Bakhmut are now very vulnerable to being surrounded. But the Ukrainian military will now look to see where else they can apply a whole series of new units that have been armed by the West, have been trained. They've been trained by Britain, by the US, other Western allies. They haven't been put into battle yet. And all these tanks, Western British tanks, German Leopards, all of this is largely unused. So this is really an unexpected surprise, a pleasant opportunity, one might say, for the Ukrainian military. But there's also concerns because Putin is now cornered, and he's showed a few weeks ago when he blew that dam near Zaporizhia province and caused the biggest ecological catastrophe for decades in Europe, that he's capable of doing monstrous things when he's got his back up against the wall. And he's certainly got his back up against the wall now. He's going to be fighting for his political survival. And people fear in Ukraine and elsewhere that he may blow the nuclear power plant in the Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia, which has been controlled by Russians for over a year. And that would cause, it's the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. It would cause a catastrophe, not only just for Ukraine, but the whole of the continent and probably worldwide. So Ukrainians are glad for the opportunity to strike at the Russian forces. They hope that the Russians will be too busy killing each other and may desist from slaughtering Ukrainians. But there are also dangers as Putin becomes further cornered.
Askold, tell us a little bit about Rostov, because that's where Prigozhin started his campaign against the Russian troops. And he claims to have captured the Russian military HQ in Rostov, which is extremely important, of course, because that's the sort of the nerve and command center for the war effort in Ukraine from the Russian troops.
Exactly. That is the headquarters, certainly for their southern military group. But in practice, it is the key pivotal place from which they have directed the war in Ukraine. And from what we can see of on social media and stuff that's been released by Prigozhin's people, but also confirmed by Putin himself, who talked in a television address earlier today about a mutiny, so I think it's true that they did take this headquarters, which is also a big Russian military base. And the interesting thing there is that the Russian regular army didn't fire back at the Wagner mercenaries. Why? Were they too worried? Were they just hostage to their own hierarchical way of just waiting for orders? They're not used to taking initiative. Or maybe some of them are sympathetic to Wagner and Prigozhin. And that's what Prigozhin is counting on as he is moving northwards, and he's now halfway towards Moscow, where he apparently intends to enter to violently change the political situation there, although he's talking about changing the military leadership and not directly threatening Putin, although Putin is now talking about ordering his special forces to apparently to eliminate Prigozhin.